The cold metal floor pressed against Maya's cheek as consciousness slowly returned to her. Her head felt like someone had hit it with a hammer, and the taste of copper filled her mouth. She tried to move her arms, but they felt heavy and strange. The last thing she remembered was the blinding flash of light. During the rescue mission on that distant planet, Maya slowly opened her eyes and found herself staring at walls that seemed to be made of glass, but not quite glass. They sparkled and shifted like water frozen in time. She pushed herself up to sitting position, her military training kicking in despite the confusion. First rule of capture: figure out where you are and who has you. The room she was in was unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls glowed softly with their own light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. There was no visible door, no windows, just smooth surfaces that seemed to breathe. The air smelled sweet, like flowers after rain, but there was something else underneath. Something foreign and electric. Maya stood up carefully, testing her balance. Her uniform was still intact, but her weapons were gone. Of course they were. She walked to one of the walls and pressed her hand against it. It felt warm and alive, almost like touching skin. The surface rippled slightly under her palm, and she jerked her hand back in surprise. Through the transparent barrier, she could see movement. Tall figures glided past, their forms graceful and fluid. They were definitely not human. Maya's heart raced as she got her first clear look at her captors. They were beautiful in an otherworldly way, with skin that seemed to shimmer with different colors as they moved. Each one had forearms that moved in perfect harmony, like dancers who had practiced the same routine for years. What struck Maya most was how they moved around her prison. They didn't march by like guards or ignore her like most captors would. Instead, they seemed to slow down when they passed, turning their large eyes toward her with what looked like curiosity. Some even stopped for a moment, tilting their heads in a way that reminded Maya of her childhood dog when it heard an interesting sound. A younger-looking alien approached her cell, carrying what appeared to be a tray of food, but instead of sliding it through a slot or dropping it carelessly, the being knelt down and placed the tray gently near the barrier. The food itself was arranged like art, colorful fruits and vegetables that Maya didn't recognize, but they smelled delicious. The alien made a soft sound, almost like singing, and backed away slowly. Maya stared at the tray. This wasn't how prisoners were usually treated. She had been captured before, years ago during the war on Europa. That time, she got stale bread and water. This looked like a meal fit for someone important. She picked up one of the fruits. It was purple and shaped like a star, and took a careful bite. It tasted like the best apple she had ever eaten, but with hints of honey and something that made her think of summer afternoons. As she ate, Maya noticed more strange behavior from her captors. They would walk by in small groups, talking in their musical language, but they kept their voices low when they passed her cell. It was like they were trying not to disturb her. Some carried what looked like flowers, dropping single petals near her prison as they passed. The ship itself was impossible to understand. Maya had served on dozens of different vessels, from small scout ships to massive battle cruisers, but this was something else entirely. The corridors she could see seemed to curve and flow like rivers. The walls weren't just walls. They were covered in what looked like living vines that pulsed with soft light. Sometimes she would see other aliens tending to these vines, touching them gently like gardeners caring for precious plants. Through a gap in the organic architecture, Maya caught a glimpse of space outside, but instead of the usual view of stars and darkness, she saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. A massive structure floated in the distance, not built, but grown. It looked like a city-sized flower made of crystal and light, its petals opening and closing slowly like it was breathing. That's when Maya realized she wasn't just on any alien ship. She was being taken somewhere important. The careful treatment, the respectful behavior of her captors, the elaborate food, none of it made sense if she was just another prisoner of war. A new group of aliens approached her cell, and Maya could tell immediately that these were different. They wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, and they moved with even more grace than the others. One of them, clearly the leader, had skin that shifted through the colors of a sunset. This one studied Maya for a long moment, those large eyes seeming to look right through her. The leader spoke to the others in their singing language, and Maya heard something that made her heart skip, mixed in with the alien words. She could swear she heard something that sounded like human and legend. But that was impossible. Humans had only been exploring space for a few decades. They were newcomers to the galaxy, not legends. The group moved on. But Maya noticed they left behind more flower petals and what looked like small crystals that hummed with their own music. She was starting to understand that whatever was happening to her, it wasn't what she expected when she woke up in this strange prison. Hours passed, or maybe days. It was hard to tell without any natural light. Maya found herself watching the aliens more carefully. They were clearly intelligent, probably more so than humans in many ways. Their technology was so advanced it seemed like magic. But there was something else about them, something that reminded Maya of how people act around celebrities or heroes. The ship began to change course, and Maya felt the subtle shift in artificial gravity that meant they were approaching their destination. Through the gaps in the organic walls, she could see that crystal city growing larger. It wasn't just a city, it was bigger than anything humans had ever built, a living structure that seemed to dance among the stars. Maya realized that whatever was about to happen, her life would never be the same. She was about to meet someone or something important, and for reasons she couldn't understand. They had been waiting for her. The question was, why? What could a simple human soldier possibly mean to beings who could build cities that bloomed like flowers in space? As the ship docked with a sound like wind chimes and a gentle breeze, Maya stood up and straightened her uniform. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same courage that had gotten her through every other impossible situation in her life. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something much bigger than herself, something that would change not just her own fate, but the fate of humanity itself. The door to Maya's cell dissolved like morning mist, and she found herself face to face with the most beautiful beings she had ever seen. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their forearms moving in perfect harmony as they gestured for her to follow. Their skin shimmered with colors that had no names in human language, and when they walked, it looked like they were floating just above the ground. Maya stepped out of her prison, her boots making soft sounds on a floor that felt alive. Beneath her feet, the corridor she entered took her breath away. It was like walking through the inside of a giant tree, but a tree made of light and crystal. The walls curved upward and around her, covered in what looked like living artwork that moved and changed as she watched. Tiny lights danced along the walls like fireflies, and Maya realized they weren't lights at all. They were small creatures, no bigger than her thumb, that glowed with their own inner fire. They seemed curious about her, gathering in small groups to watch her pass. One brave little creature landed on her shoulder, its tiny feet feeling like warm raindrops on her skin. The aliens leading her made soft sounds that might have been laughter. When they saw the little creature choose Maya as a perch, they exchanged glances that seemed to say something important, but Maya couldn't understand what. All she knew was that everything about this place felt alive, from the walls that pulsed gently like a heartbeat, to the air that tasted like spring water and starlight. As they walked deeper into the ship, Maya saw more aliens going about their daily lives. Some were tending to gardens that grew directly from the walls, their hands working together to care for plants that bloomed in impossible colors. Others were working with what looked like computers, but instead of screens and keyboards, they used crystals that sang different notes when touched. Children ran through the corridors, their laughter sounding like music. When they saw Maya, they stopped and stared with wide eyes full of wonder. Some of the braver ones approached, reaching out to touch her hair or her uniform with gentle curiosity. Their parents watched with smiles that seemed to say they were witnessing something special. Maya couldn't help but smile back. Despite being a prisoner, she felt more welcomed here than she had in some human cities. These beings, whatever they were, seemed to radiate kindness and joy. It was the complete opposite of what she had expected from alien captors. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that made Maya's jaw drop. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars spinning slowly overhead. But it wasn't just a window. It was alive, opening and closing like the petals of a massive flower. Sometimes it would focus on a particular star, magnifying it until Maya could see the planets orbiting around it. Gardens filled the chamber. But these weren't ordinary gardens. Trees grew in spirals that defied gravity, their branches reaching toward the star ceiling. Flowers sang in harmony with each other, creating music that made Maya's heart feel light. Streams of water flowed upward in impossible curves, carrying fish that glowed like living jewels. But it was the throne at the center of the chamber that truly amazed Maya. It wasn't carved from stone or metal. It had grown from the floor itself, looking like a massive shell made of pearl and starlight. And sitting on that throne was the most magnificent being Maya had ever seen. The queen was clearly ancient, but not in the way humans aged. She seemed to carry the wisdom of centuries in her large, kind eyes. Her forearms were decorated with flowing ribbons that moved like liquid light, and her head was crowned with crystals that grew naturally from her skull, each one singing a different note when the light hit it dot as Maya was brought before the throne. Something unexpected happened. The queen's eyes widened, and she leaned forward as if seeing something impossible. The entire chamber fell silent. Even the singing flowers stopped their music. Maya could hear her own heartbeat in the sudden quiet. Then the queen stood up, her movements graceful despite her obvious age. She walked down from her throne, something that made all the other aliens in the chamber gasp in surprise. Maya got the feeling that the queen didn't leave her throne for just anyone. When the queen spoke, her voice was like hearing the ocean sing. But what shocked Maya most was that she could understand every word. Even though the queen was clearly speaking in her own language, somehow the meaning flowed directly into Maya's mind. So, the rumors were true, the queen said, her voice filled with wonder and joy. You are the human legend. Maya opened her mouth to protest, to explain that she was just a soldier, just a regular person who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But before she could speak, the queen continued. We have waited so long for this day, so many cycles of the stars, so many generations of our people, all hoping to see the return of the humans who once walked among us like gods. The chamber erupted in celebration. Aliens began to sing, their voices joining together in a harmony that made Maya's bones vibrate with joy. Flowers bloomed instantly throughout the garden, releasing fragrances that smelled like every happy memory Maya had ever had. The little creatures that lived in the walls came out in thousands, filling the air with dancing lights. Maya stood in the center of it all, completely confused. She had never felt so lost and so honored at the same time. These beings clearly believed she was something special, something legendary. But Maya knew the truth. She was just a human, just a person trying to do her best in a complicated universe. The queen approached her, moving with the grace of someone who had learned to walk on water. She reached out with one of her hands and gently touched Maya's face. Her skin felt like warm silk, and Maya could sense the incredible kindness in this being. You are smaller than the stories said, the queen observed with what might have been a smile. But your spirit burns just as bright as the ancient tales describe. Tell me, child of Earth, do you remember us? Do you remember the promises your people made? Maya shook her head, her voice finally finding its way back to her. I'm sorry, but I think you have me confused with someone else. I'm just a soldier. I've never been here before, and I don't know anything about any promises. The queen's expression didn't change, but Maya saw something flicker in her eyes, not disappointment, but understanding. Of course, she said softly, the memories would be lost to time. Come, child, let me show you what your people meant to us, and perhaps you will understand why your return fills our hearts with such joy. As the queen led Maya toward what looked like a living library growing from the walls, Maya realized that her simple life as a soldier was over. Whatever these beings believed about humans, whatever these legends were, she was now part of something much bigger than herself. And for the first time since waking up in that crystal prison, Maya felt a flutter of excitement mixed with her fear. Maybe being a legend wouldn't be so bad after all. The queen's private chambers were nothing like Maya had expected. Instead of cold, formal rooms filled with expensive furniture, she found herself in what felt like sitting inside a star. The walls glowed with warm, golden light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Comfortable seats grew from the floor like mushrooms, perfectly shaped for both human and alien bodies. Maya sank into one of these living chairs, and it molded itself to fit her perfectly. The queen settled across from her, her forearms moving gracefully as she prepared what looked like tea. But this wasn't ordinary tea. The liquid in the cups swirled with tiny lights, and when Maya took a sip, it tasted like every comfort food she had ever loved, all mixed together in perfect harmony. "This is going to be hard to believe," the queen said, her voice gentle but serious. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about your people and your place in the universe." Maya set down her cup, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm listening." The queen waved one of her hands, and the air in front of them shimmered. Suddenly, Maya was looking at what appeared to be a three-dimensional movie playing in the space between them. She could see stars and planets, spaceships that looked nothing like the crude vessels humans had built, and beings from dozens of different worlds. "Long ago," the queen began, "when my people first learned to travel between the stars, we were not alone. The galaxy was full of young species, all learning to reach beyond their home worlds. We were excited, but also frightened. Space is vast and dangerous, and we didn't know who we could trust." The images in the air showed the queen's people, but they looked different, younger somehow, less graceful. They moved with the uncertainty of children taking their first steps. Maya watched as their primitive ships struggled through space, clearly new to the whole experience of galactic travel. "Then we met them," the queen continued, "and the images changed." Maya's heart nearly stopped. Walking among the aliens in the holographic display were humans. But these weren't humans from her time. They were dressed in clothing she didn't recognize, and they moved with a confidence that seemed almost magical. "Humans," Maya whispered. "Yes," the queen said with a smile, "but not humans as you know them. These were your people from a time so far in the future that your current civilization was just a memory to them. They had learned to travel not just through space, but through time itself." Maya watched in amazement as the future humans in the display helped the queen's people and dozens of other species. They taught them how to build better ships, how to grow food in space, how to heal diseases that had plagued entire worlds. But most importantly, they taught them how to solve problems without fighting. "Your people were miracle workers," the queen explained. "When the Crystal Wars threatened to destroy half the galaxy, it was humans who found a way to make peace. When the plague hit the Endorian systems, humans worked day and night to find a cure. When the Void Hunters tried to consume entire star systems, humans stood in their way and somehow convinced them to stop." The images showed scene after scene of humans helping, healing, and protecting. Maya saw her own species, or at least what her species might become, standing as guardians and teachers throughout the galaxy. They weren't conquerors or rulers. They were friends, helpers, and protectors. But then, the queen's voice grew sad. They began to disappear. The holographic display showed the future humans saying goodbye to various alien species. There were tears, embraces, and what looked like promises being made. One by one, the humans faded from the galaxy until none remained. "Where did they go?" Maya asked. "Back to their own time," the queen replied. "But before they left, they made us a promise. They said that when the galaxy needed them most, when the younger species were ready to take their place among the stars, humans would return. Not the wise, advanced humans we had known, but the younger humans, the ones who were just beginning to explore space." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean us, present-day humans, yes?" The queen nodded. "They told us that when we met these younger humans, we would know them by their spirit. They would be brave but not cruel, curious but not greedy, strong but not harsh. They would solve problems in ways that seemed impossible, not because they were superhuman, But because they were so perfectly human, the display changed again, and Maya saw images that made her gasp. These were recent events, human colonies being established, human ships exploring new systems, human scientists making first contact with alien species. But the aliens in these images weren't fighting the humans or running from them. They were welcoming them, helping them, treating them like long-lost friends. "We've been waiting for you," the Queen said simply. "All of us, every species that was touched by your future selves has been watching the skies, hoping to see human ships again. When we heard that humans were beginning to spread through the galaxy, we knew the time had come." Maya's head was spinning. "But I'm just a soldier. I'm not wise or magical or anything special. I make mistakes all the time. I get scared. I get angry. I sometimes don't know what to do." The Queen leaned forward, her eyes twinkling with something that might have been amusement. "Child, that's exactly what makes you special. The humans who helped us so long ago weren't perfect beings. They were people who cared about others, who refused to give up when things got hard, who found ways to help even when it seemed impossible." She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed Maya herself during the rescue mission that had led to her capture. Maya watched herself risking her life to save colonists she had never met, people who meant nothing to her except that they were in trouble and needed help. "You see," the Queen said, "you were captured because you were trying to save people who weren't even your own kind. You could have stayed safe, but you chose to help. That's what makes you legendary. Not because you're perfect, but because you're human." Maya sat back in her chair, overwhelmed. Everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the universe was wrong. They weren't newcomers struggling to find their place among the stars. They were the return of legends, the fulfillment of ancient promises, the answer to prayers that had been whispered across the galaxy for thousands of years. "But there's more," the Queen continued, and Maya noticed a change in her tone. "The future humans didn't just leave us with promises, they left us with warnings. They told us that when you return, it would be because the galaxy was facing its greatest challenge yet." The holographic display flickered and changed, showing star charts and what looked like tactical information. Maya recognized some of the symbols. They were military in nature, the kind of information that suggested conflict was coming. "What kind of challenge?" Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. The Queen's expression grew serious. "That, my dear human legend, is something we need to figure out together. But first, we need to get you home. Your people need to know what they really are, and the galaxy needs to know that the legends have returned." Maya looked out through the transparent walls of the chamber at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, humanity was taking its first steps into a larger universe, not knowing that they were actually returning to a home they had never known they had. And somehow, a simple soldier like her had become the key to it all. "How do I even begin to explain this?" Maya asked. The Queen smiled, and for the first time since this all began, Maya felt like everything might actually be okay. "The same way your people always have," the Queen said, "one step at a time, with courage and hope, and by helping others along the way." Maya woke up the next morning feeling like she had dreamed the entire conversation with the Queen. But when she opened her eyes, she was still in the beautiful guest room that had been prepared for her, with walls that shifted colors like a sunset, and a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud. A gentle knock at her door brought her back to reality. One of the four-armed beings entered, carrying what looked like breakfast and a message crystal that glowed softly in their hands. When Maya touched the crystal, the Queen's voice filled her mind. "My dear human friend." The Queen's voice was warm, but serious. "I'm afraid our time together must be cut short. The Galactic Council has learned of your presence here, and they are demanding proof that you are truly one of the legendary humans. They have ordered that you undergo the trial of echoes." Maya's stomach dropped. A trial sounded ominous, especially when she still didn't fully understand what these aliens expected from her. She had been hoping for more time to figure out this whole legend situation. But apparently the galaxy had other plans. Within an hour, Maya found herself being escorted to a massive dome structure. that seemed to exist in its own pocket of space. The building was transparent, showing a view of stars and nebulae that took her breath away. But inside the dome, Maya could see what looked like a dozen different worlds all existing in the same space. The Trial of Echoes, the Queen explained as they walked toward the entrance, was designed by your future ancestors before they disappeared. They knew that one day, younger humans would need to prove themselves to the galaxy. But the trial doesn't test what you might expect. Maya swallowed hard. What does it test? It tests whether you're human, the Queen said simply. Really, truly human. The inside of the dome was even more incredible than the outside. Maya found herself standing in what looked like a control room. But the walls were covered with living vines that pulsed with information. Screens grew from the floor like flowers, showing different environments that seemed to exist in separate chambers throughout the dome. An elderly alien with silver skin and 6 arms approached them. This was clearly someone important, other. Aliens bowed when they saw him, and he carried himself with the authority of someone who had been making difficult decisions for a very long time. I am the Keeper of Trials, he said, his voice like distant thunder. Human, you stand before the test that has waited for your people for 1,000 years. Are you ready to prove that the legends speak true? Maya looked around at all the aliens. Watching her, some seemed hopeful, others looked skeptical, and a few appeared worried. The weight of their expectations pressed down on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. I'm ready, she said, hoping her voice sounded braver than she felt. The first chamber materialized around her, and Maya found herself standing in what looked like a burning city. The air was thick with smoke, and she could hear cries for help coming from a collapsed building nearby. Her military training kicked in immediately, and she ran toward the sounds. But when she reached the building, she discovered that the people trapped inside weren't human. They were small, furry creatures with large eyes, speaking in a language she didn't understand. For a moment, Maya hesitated. These weren't her people, weren't her responsibility. Then she heard a child crying, and nothing else mattered. Maya threw herself into the rescue effort, using her training to navigate the dangerous debris and find safe paths through the wreckage. She worked for what felt like hours, carrying the small beings to safety one by one. When the last survivor was rescued, the simulation faded away. The second chamber was completely different. Maya found herself in a beautiful garden where 2 groups of aliens were arguing violently. They were on the verge of fighting, weapons drawn, angry words flying back and forth. As Maya watched, she realized this was about to become a battle that would destroy this peaceful place. Maya stepped between the 2 groups, her hands raised peacefully. She didn't speak their language, but she began to gesture, to point out the beauty around them, to show them what they were about to destroy. Slowly, patiently, she helped them remember why they had built this garden together in the first place. When they finally put down their weapons and embraced, Maya felt tears of relief rolling down her cheeks. The third chamber was the hardest yet. Maya found herself facing a choice that made her heart ache. She could save a ship full of children, or she could save a research station that held the cure to a disease affecting millions. There was no way to do both, and every second she delayed meant more lives would be lost. Maya closed her eyes and thought about what her future descendants would do. Then she realized they wouldn't accept this choice. There had to be another way. She began to examine the situation more carefully, looking for options that weren't immediately obvious. The answer came to her in a flash of inspiration. Instead of choosing between the 2, she found a way to use the research station's own equipment to boost the ship's engines, allowing it to escape while simultaneously broadcasting the cure to every medical facility in the system. When both the children and the millions of disease victims were saved, Maya felt a pride unlike anything she had ever experienced. Chamber after chamber, the trials continued. Maya faced situations that seemed impossible, problems that appeared to have no good solutions. But each time, she found a way, not through superhuman strength or magical powers, but through the very human qualities of stubbornness, creativity, and an absolute refusal to give up when people needed help. In the final chamber, Maya faced the most difficult test of all. she was shown a vision of Earth, of her own people, struggling with problems that seemed too big to solve: poverty, disease, war, environmental damage, all the challenges that had plagued humanity for generations. "This is your choice," a voice said from nowhere and everywhere. "You can return to your people with the knowledge and technology to solve all these problems instantly, or you can let them struggle and find their own solutions, knowing that the journey itself is what makes them strong." Maya stood in that chamber for a long time, thinking about what it meant to be human. Finally, she spoke to the empty air. "The struggle is what makes us who we are," she said. "If you take away the challenges, you take away the growth. I'll share what I've learned, but my people need to find their own way, just like every other species in the galaxy." When the trials ended, Maya found herself back in the control room, surrounded by aliens who were staring at her with expressions of amazement and joy. The Keeper of Trials approached her, his 6 arms trembling with emotion. "Remarkable," he said. "In every chamber, you chose the most difficult path, the path of compassion over convenience, of hope over despair, of patience over power. You have proven beyond any doubt that you are truly human, in the best sense of that word." The Queen stepped forward, her eyes shining with pride. "And now," she said, "we must prepare you for the most important task of all. It's time to contact your people and tell them who they really are." Maya nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She had passed the trials, but she knew that the real test was just beginning. She had to find a way to convince humanity that they weren't just newcomers to the galaxy. They were the fulfillment of ancient promises, the return of legends, and the hope that countless species had been waiting for. As she prepared to send a message back to Earth, Maya smiled. It was going to be the most unbelievable conversation in human history. But she was ready for it. After all, she was human, and humans never back down from a challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. Maya stood in front of the communication device, her hands shaking slightly as she prepared to make the most important call in human history. The machine itself was unlike anything she had ever seen. It looked like a tree made of crystal and light, with branches that reached toward the stars visible through the dome's transparent ceiling. "Just speak normally," the Queen assured her, placing a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "The device will translate your words and send them across space faster than light itself. Your people will hear you as clearly as if you were standing right next to them." Maya took a deep breath and activated the communicator. Static filled the air for a moment, then cleared to reveal the familiar face of General Rodriguez, her commanding officer back on Earth. His expression went from relief to confusion to complete shock in the span of 3 seconds. "Maya, thank goodness you're alive. We've been searching for you for weeks. Where are you? And what is that behind you?" Maya glanced back at the Queen and the other aliens gathered in the chamber. "Sir, I'm about to tell you something that's going to sound impossible, but I need you to listen carefully, because the future of humanity depends on it." Over the next hour, Maya explained everything: the capture, the Queen's revelations about humanity's legendary status, the trials, and the truth about the future humans who had helped shape the galaxy thousands of years ago. She watched General Rodriguez's face go through every emotion possible as he struggled to process the information. "Let me get this straight," the general said finally. "You're telling me that humans from the future traveled back in time, helped alien civilizations develop, and now those same aliens think we're the return of these legendary helpers?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you, sir," Maya replied. "And there's more. Earth Command needs to know that we're receiving similar messages from human outposts across the galaxy. Every species we've made contact with has been treating us like returning heroes." The general was quiet for a long moment, then asked, "Maya, how can we verify any of this? This sounds like science fiction." The Queen stepped forward, her presence immediately commanding attention even through the communication link. When she spoke, her words were translated into perfect English, but her voice carried the weight of centuries. "General Rodriguez of Earth," she said formally, "I'm Queen Lyrale of the Zephyrian Empire. Your soldier speaks the truth. We have been waiting for humanity's return for over 1,000 years. We have records, artifacts, and testimonies from dozens of species who were touched by your people's kindness in ages past. Maya watched as our commanding officer struggled to maintain his composure. She didn't blame him, even after experiencing everything firsthand. She sometimes wondered if she was dreaming. Your Majesty, the general said carefully, if what you say is true, then humanity needs to understand our role in this galaxy. But we're still learning about space travel. We don't have the wisdom or technology that these legendary humans supposedly possessed. The Queen smiled, and Maya could see the kindness that had made her feel safe from the very beginning. General, that is precisely why you are legendary. Your future selves became wise and powerful. But they never forgot what it meant to be beautifully, perfectly human. They solved problems not with magic or superior technology, but with the same qualities your soldier has shown me: compassion, creativity, and an unshakable determination to help others. The communication device suddenly came alive with incoming signals from across the galaxy. Maya watched in amazement as reports flooded in from every human colony and outpost. The same story was being repeated everywhere, alien species welcoming humans as returning legends, offering help and friendship instead of hostility or indifference. Captain Chen from the Mars colony reported that the crystalline beings of Proxima b had gifted them with technology to terraform barren worlds. Commander Okafor from the Jupiter mining station said that the aquatic species of Kepler 440c had shared the secrets of underwater cities. Every human settlement had a similar tale of aliens treating them like long-lost family members. Returning home, it's happening everywhere. Maya said to the Queen, humanity is being welcomed across the galaxy. But then the mood in the chamber shifted. The Keeper of Trials approached with urgent information glowing on a data crystal. His expression was grave as he shared the contents with the Queen. What is it? Maya asked. The Queen's face grew serious. The reason for your return has revealed itself. Our long-range sensors have detected something at the edge of the galaxy, something that doesn't belong to any known species. The void hunters that your future ancestors once faced are returning, and this time they're stronger than ever. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Void hunters? Beings that consume entire star systems, the Queen explained. They turn living worlds into empty space, leaving nothing behind but darkness. Your future selves helped us defeat them once, but that was with technology and wisdom developed over centuries. Now they're coming back, and we have to face them with present-day human capabilities. The weight of the situation hit Maya like a physical blow. Humanity had just learned they were part of a galactic community, only to discover that community was under threat from something unimaginably dangerous. How long do we have? General Rodriguez asked through the communicator. Our best estimates suggest the void hunters will reach the outer colonies within 6 months, the Keeper replied. But humanity's presence in the galaxy has already begun to change things. Species that have been isolated for centuries are reaching out to form alliances. Your people have a gift for bringing others together. Maya looked around the chamber at all the aliens who had gathered to hear this conversation. Despite the terrifying news, she saw hope in their eyes. They weren't looking at humans as saviors who would solve all their problems. They were looking at them as partners, as friends who would stand beside them in the coming darkness. What do we do? Maya asked. The Queen placed her hand over her heart, and what Maya had learned was a gesture of deep respect among her people. We do what your ancestors would have done. We work together. We refuse to give up. And we find a way to protect every living thing in this galaxy. Over the following days, Maya found herself at the center of something amazing. The Queen's Palace became a hub of galactic communication as species from across the galaxy reached out to humanity. Trade agreements were established, cultural exchanges began, and defensive alliances were formed. Maya watched human engineers working alongside alien scientists to develop new technologies. She saw human diplomats learning alien languages while teaching Earth customs in return. Most importantly, she witnessed human children playing with alien children in the palace gardens, their laughter creating music that seemed to make the flowers bloom brighter. The threat of the Void Hunters was real and terrifying, but Maya realized that humanity's true legend wasn't about having all the answers. It was about bringing people together, about refusing to face challenges alone, and about finding hope even in the darkest situations. Standing on the observation deck of the newly established Earth Galactic Embassy, Maya looked out at ships from dozens of worlds working together to prepare defenses. Human vessels flew alongside alien craft, their crews learning from each other and building friendships that would last for generations. Maya smiled as she began writing her final report to Earth Command. She started with the words that would change everything. Command, I'm happy to report that humanity is not alone in the universe. We never were. We were just away for a while, and now we're home. The galaxy has been waiting for us, and it's time to show them why the wait was worth it. As she finished writing, Maya felt a hand on her shoulder. The Queen stood beside her, watching the same view of cooperation and hope spreading across the stars. Your future ancestors would be proud, the Queen said softly. Maya nodded, feeling the truth of those words in her heart. Humanity was indeed legendary, not because they were perfect, but because they never stopped trying to make things better for everyone around them. And that, Maya realized, was a legacy worth living up to.